Hi, and welcome to your Energy Systems Dashboard tour. This tour will give you a high-level view of your customer dashboard. This page can be found at cloud.energysystems.com. When you first log in, you will be at the home page. From here, I suggest you go to your account settings in the top right-hand corner. Click on Account Settings. These settings will allow you to change things such as your mobile number, monthly reports, on-peak notifications, demand warnings, data flow notifications, and two-factor security settings. Make the changes as desired, and then click on Management Portal. Let's take a moment to talk about peak demand in electricity usage. In power, time is a factor. The energy used by one 100-watt light bulb lit for 10 hours is the same as the energy used by 10 bulbs lit for 1 hour. As you can see in the diagram below, one 100-watt light bulb times 10 hours equals 1 kilowatt hour. 10 100-watt light bulbs lit for 1 hour equals 1 kilowatt hour. So what this is saying is we need 10 times the resources to light those 10 bulbs. Let's take another look at a different analogy to understand how demand and usage relate. The car's speedometer is like a demand meter, and the odometer is like a consumption meter. Two cars could travel the same 100-mile road, one at 10 miles per hour for 10 hours, and one at 100 miles per hour for 1 hour. It takes a much more capable and expensive engine to power that car 100 miles per hour than it does to power the one only going 10 miles per hour. This view is your location dashboard. The top chart represents a month-to-date view of your energy usage and your demand for that usage. Please note that this is a month-to-date view from the first day of the month to the last day of the month. It does not line up with your utility bill. Working our way from left to right, these values represent usage, demand, generation, and the costs associated. The first column represents usage on peak and off peak. The next column represents your demand max on peak and off peak. Please note that these events have timestamps below the value. The next column is generation, which is your solar, on-peak generation and off-peak generation. The next column represents your usage cost as well as your demand cost. Your usage cost will continue to click up through the month, and your demand cost is based on your demand max during peak hours, and will basically stay the same unless you have a higher demand event during that month. This next chart is your energy summary. You'll see recent demand and usage over the last 72 hours in this view. To make this graph a little easier to read, click on L1 and L2 to hide those two data points. From left to right, the graph represents time. The orange line represents your demand during a certain time. The red shaded column represents the demand period. In this case, it's between 1 p.m. and 8 p.m. The green column represents a weekend or a holiday. If your energy consumption is less than your generation, the blue line represents energy generation that is going back to the grid. This next chart represents your thermal summary. Again, in this chart, from left to right represents time. The blue and orange lines represent air conditioner activity versus the temperature reading at the thermostat. Be aware that all of our charts you can hover across, as well as click and drag to zoom in, and you can reset zoom. This next chart represents solar generation as well as solar distribution. This pie chart represents your solar consumed on peak and off peak, as well as solar being pushed back to the grid on peak and off peak. The 2 meters on the right represent your percentage of usage from solar on peak as well as off peak. The bar graph represents your solar generation in 1 hour buckets of time. As you can see, your solar generation peak is around 11 a.m. to noon. Next, in the Location Energy Details box, click on the device. The device will highlight blue. The top graph is a similar graph from your location dashboard. To make this graph a bit easier to read, click on L1 and L2 to remove these data points. The next graph represents real-time activity on your demand management system. From left to right represents time. The orange line represents temperature outside, and the red and blue line represents real-time activity in 1-minute increments. You can hover over each dot to see the demand and the temperature outside, as well as a timestamp. The next graph is auxiliary usage summary. In this graph, you can see what device is running, at what time, and the demand for each device the system is monitoring. You can hover over each column to see the timestamp, as well as what device was running at what time. Next, we will take a look at your billing view. Go to the top of the page, click on Smart Views, and then click on Billing. When you get to the billing view, make sure your location is selected, you're on the correct utility and rate, and then go to Time Span. Under Time Span, you have several different options from the preset menu, or you can choose Custom to line it up to your actual utility bill. In this case, we're going to select the last 3 days, and then click Generate Billing View. The graph at the top of the page represents your hourly energy, your demand, and your demand limit that has been set in the demand management system. To make this chart easier to view, click on hourly energy to hide that data point. In this chart, the green line represents your actual demand. The red line represents the demand period for this residence. In this case, at 1 p.m. is when the demand period starts, and at 8 p.m. is when the demand period ends.